In scenario 1, yes, the grounding electrode conductor must be connected to the grounded conductor in the 3-wire cable before entering the service panel. The tie bar between the neutral and grounding bars or buses is then used to bond these to the metal enclosure. This is required by National Electrical Code Section 250.24 C4. In scenario 2, the tie bar between the neutral and grounding bars or buses in the garage subpanel must be removed. This is required by National Electrical Code Section 250.30, which prohibits the connection of neutral and grounding conductors at remote panel boards. In scenario 3, when a 4-conductor cable is used, the tie bar between the neutral and grounding bars or buses in the service panel must be removed. This is because the equipment grounding conductor, also known as EGC, in the cable provides the grounding connection for the neutral, and no bonding connection is needed between the neutral and grounding bars. This is required by National Electrical Code Section 250.142 B and 250.23. Let's delve into the details of residential service grounding and bonding, focusing on 3 specific scenarios commonly encountered in electrical installations. Proper grounding and bonding are crucial for electrical safety, ensuring that fault currents have a low impedance path back to the source, thus minimizing the risk of electric shock and fire. Understanding the National Electrical Code, or NEC, requirements is essential for compliant and safe installations. Scenario 1 involves a 3-wire service cable entering a service panel. In this scenario, the grounding electrode conductor is connected to the grounded conductor within the 3-wire cable before it enters the service panel. A tie bar is present connecting the neutral, also known as the grounded conductor, bar or bus to the grounding bar or bus. Additionally, a grounding bar bonding screw is used to bond these to the metal enclosure of the service panel. According to National Electrical Code Section 250.24 C4, this configuration is indeed permissible and often required. The purpose of this arrangement is to establish a solid connection between the grounding electrode system, the grounded conductor, and the service equipment enclosure. This connection ensures that any fault current will have a direct path back to the source, facilitating the operation of overcurrent protective devices such as circuit breakers. In scenario 2, we examine a subpanel located in an attached garage, fed from the main service panel using a 2-pole breaker. The key question here is whether the tie bar between the neutral and grounding bars or buses in the garage subpanel should be used or removed. National Electrical Code Section 250.30 provides clear guidance on this matter. According to this section, the tie bar in the subpanel must be removed. The NEC prohibits the connection of neutral and grounding conductors at remote panel boards, also known as subpanels. The reason for this requirement is to prevent circulating neutral currents from flowing through the grounding path, which can create noise and potentially dangerous voltage potentials. In a subpanel, the grounding conductor must be kept separate from the neutral conductor. The grounding conductor provides a path for fault currents to return to the main service panel, where the neutral and grounding systems are bonded together. By keeping these conductors separate in the subpanel, the risk of unwanted current flow through the grounding system is minimized. Scenario 3 deals with a combination meter and breaker enclosure located some distance from the main service panel. Due to the distance, a 4-conductor cable is used, as required by National Electrical Code Section 250.142 B. The question here is whether the tie bar between the neutral and grounding bars and the main service panel should be used or removed. In this scenario, the tie bar between the neutral and grounding bars or buses in the service panel must be removed. When a 4-conductor cable is used, it includes an equipment grounding conductor, also known as EGC. This conductor provides the grounding connection for the neutral, and therefore no bonding connection is needed between the neutral and grounding bars in the service panel. The equipment grounding conductor serves as the dedicated path for fault currents, ensuring that they can safely return to the source without relying on the neutral conductor. National Electrical Code Sections 250.142 B and 250.23 provide the requirements for this configuration. To summarize, firstly, in a 3-wire service entrance, the grounding electrode conductor is connected to the grounded conductor before entering the service panel, and the neutral and grounding bars are bonded together. Secondly, in a sub-panel, the neutral and grounding bars must be kept separate, and the tie bar between them must be removed. Thirdly, when using a 4-conductor cable to feed a service panel, the neutral and grounding bars must also be kept separate, and the tie bar must be removed. Adhering to these guidelines ensures safe and compliant electrical installations, protecting people and property from electrical hazards. In each of these scenarios, the equipment grounding conductor, neutral conductor, and grounding electrode conductor play distinct roles in ensuring electrical safety. Let's examine these roles more closely. The equipment grounding conductor provides a low impedance path for fault current to return to the source. It is connected to all non-current carrying metal parts of electrical equipment, such as enclosures, raceways, and appliance frames. In the event of a fault, the equipment grounding conductor carries the fault current back to the source, allowing the overcurrent protective device to trip and to energize the circuit. The neutral conductor, also known as the grounded conductor, provides a return path for normal load current. It is connected to the neutral point of the power source, typically the transformer. The neutral conductor is intentionally grounded at the service entrance to establish a reference point for the electrical system. The grounding electrode conductor connects the grounding system to the earth. It is connected to a grounding electrode, such as a ground rod, ground plate, or underground metal water pipe. The grounding electrode conductor provides a path for fault current to dissipate into the earth, reducing the risk of electric shock. The grounding electrode conductor also helps to stabilize the voltage of the electrical system, preventing voltage fluctuations and surges. Now let's consider some additional factors related to grounding and bonding in residential electrical services. Firstly, the size of the grounding electrode conductor must be appropriate for the size of the service entrance conductors. National Electrical Code Table 250.66 provides guidance on selecting the correct size of grounding electrode conductor based on the size of the service entrance conductors. Secondly, the grounding electrode must be installed in accordance with National Electrical Code Section 250.52. This section specifies the types of grounding electrodes that are permitted, as well as the requirements for their installation. Thirdly, all metal water pipes that are used as grounding electrodes must be supplemented by an additional grounding electrode, such as a ground rod or ground plate. This is because plastic water pipes are becoming increasingly common, and metal water pipes may be isolated from the earth due to plastic fittings. Fourthly, the grounding system must be inspected and tested periodically to ensure that it is functioning properly. This can be done by a qualified electrician using a ground resistance tester. Fifthly, any modifications or additions to the electrical system must be done in accordance with the National Electrical Code. This includes ensuring that all new equipment is properly grounded and bonded. Sixthly, it is important to understand the difference between grounding and bonding. Grounding is the connection of the electrical system to the earth, while bonding is the connection of non-current carrying metal parts to each other. Both grounding and bonding are essential for electrical safety. Seventhly, the National Electrical Code is updated every 3 years, so it is important to stay up to date on the latest requirements. The National Electrical Code is available for purchase from the National Fire Protection Association, also known as NFPA. Eighthly, it is always best to consult with a qualified electrician before making any changes to the electrical system. A qualified electrician can ensure that the work is done safely and in accordance with the National Electrical Code. Ninthly, when working on electrical equipment, it is important to always turn off the power at the breaker before starting work. This will help to prevent electric shock. Tenthly, use caution when working around electricity and always follow safe work practices. Electricity can be dangerous, and it is important to take precautions to protect yourself from harm. In addition to the requirements discussed above, there are several other considerations that are important for ensuring safe and reliable residential electrical services. Firstly, surge protection devices can protect sensitive electronic equipment from damage caused by voltage surges. Surge protection devices should be installed at the service entrance and at individual branch circuits that serve sensitive equipment. Secondly, arc fault circuit interrupters, also known as FSIs, can protect against fires caused by arc faults. Arc faults are dangerous electrical faults that can occur when insulation on electrical wiring becomes damaged or frayed. Arc fault circuit interrupters should be installed on all branch circuits that serve bedrooms, living rooms, and other areas where people are likely to be present. Thirdly, ground fault circuit interrupters, also known as GFCIs, can protect against electric shock caused by ground faults. Ground faults occur when current flows through an unintended path to ground. Ground fault circuit interrupters should be installed in bathrooms, kitchens, and other wet locations. Fourthly, smoke detectors should be installed in all bedrooms and on every level of the home. Smoke detectors can provide early warning of a fire, giving occupants time to escape. Fifthly, carbon monoxide detectors should be installed near sleeping areas. Carbon monoxide is a colorless, odorless gas that can be deadly. Carbon monoxide detectors can provide early warning of a carbon monoxide leak, giving occupants time to evacuate. Sixthly, electrical panels should be properly labeled to identify the circuits that they serve. This will make it easier to turn off the power to specific circuits when needed. Seventhly, electrical panels should be kept clear of obstructions to allow for easy access in case of an emergency. Eighthly, electrical wiring should be inspected periodically for damage or deterioration. Damaged or deteriorated wiring should be repaired or replaced by a qualified electrician. Ninthly, extension cords should be used only temporarily and should not be used to power appliances or other high current devices. Tenthly, overloaded electrical circuits can cause fires. Avoid overloading electrical circuits by plugging too many devices into a single outlet or circuit. In conclusion, grounding and bonding are essential for electrical safety in residential electrical services. By following the requirements of the National Electrical Code and taking the additional considerations discussed above, you can help to ensure that your home's electrical system is safe and reliable.